The day my husband died, the world didn't just stop, it shattered. One moment, I was a wife of 32 years, someone who knew exactly how her mornings would begin and how her nights would end. And the next, I was standing in a silent house, staring at a chair that would never be filled again. His coffee mug was still on the table. His slippers were still by the bed. But he was gone. Just like that. No warning. No goodbye. Only memories, and a pain so heavy, I could barely breathe. People often talk about grief like it's sadness. But it's not. Grief is emptiness. It's waking up and forgetting for a split second, and then remembering all over again. It's hearing a familiar song and feeling your chest tighten. It's realizing that the person who was your entire world is now only a photograph. And in the middle of that darkness, there was only one person who kept me from completely falling apart. My son. He was my strength when I had none. He stayed when everyone else slowly returned to their normal lives. He sat beside me on the worst nights, when sleep refused to come. He made sure I ate, even when food had no taste. He would say, "Mom, you're not alone. I'm here." And somehow, hearing those words made the silence hurt a little less. At first, I thought he was just being a good son. A loving son. A son trying to take care of his broken mother. But I had no idea how much his presence would change everything. Because grief changes people. It changes the way you see the world. It changes the way you see yourself. And sometimes, it makes you do things you never thought you were capable of. Things you can never take back. Weeks turned into months, and our lives became something I didn't recognize anymore. We weren't the same family. We weren't the same people. There were moments when I would catch him looking at me, not with pity, but with something else. Something I couldn't understand. Something that made my heart race for reasons I didn't want to admit. I told myself it was just my imagination. Just loneliness playing tricks on my mind. But deep down, I knew something was changing. And then one night, everything crossed a line. A single moment. A single decision. A single choice that would shock everyone who knew us, and change our lives forever. If someone had told me back then what I was about to do, I would have called them crazy. I would have said, "That's not me. I would never do something like that." But pain has a way of leading you down roads you never meant to walk. And what happened next is something I've never told anyone. Until now. After the funeral, people filled my house for days. They brought food I couldn't taste and spoke words I could barely hear. They told me I was strong. They told me I would be okay. But none of them stayed long enough to see what happened when the door closed and the silence came back. Only my son stayed. He started coming over every morning before work. At first, it was small things. Fixing the leaking kitchen tap his father had promised to repair. Checking the doors at night. Sitting across from me at the table, even when neither of us spoke. His presence didn't remove the grief, but it made it feel shared. One evening, I found him in his father's old study. He was sitting in that chair. The same chair his father had sat in for years. His back was straight, his face serious, his fingers resting on the armrest like he belonged there. When he noticed me standing at the door, he quickly stood up. "Sorry, Mom," he said quietly. "I was just thinking." I nodded, but something about that moment stayed with me. After that, he began taking on more responsibilities. He insisted on managing the bills. He checked my bank account, saying he didn't want me to worry. He even started calling me during the day, asking if I had eaten, asking where I was, asking when I would be home. At first, it felt like love. But slowly, it began to feel like something else. One afternoon, I told him I was planning to visit an old friend. Someone I hadn't seen since before his father died. His smile faded. "You didn't tell me," he said. His words were calm, but his tone wasn't. "I just decided today," I replied. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "You should have told me." That night, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. I started noticing other things too. He had a key to my house, but recently, he had begun letting himself in without knocking. Sometimes I would hear the door open and his voice calling, "Mom," before I even knew he was coming. And then there was the night I found something that made my hands tremble. It was a folder, hidden beneath a stack of papers in the study. Inside were documents, papers with my name on them, and his. My heart pounded as I stared at them, trying to understand what I was seeing. Because in that moment, I realized my son had been planning something. Something he hadn't told me, and I didn't know if it was meant to protect me or change my life forever. My fingers shook as I carefully placed the papers back exactly the way I had found them. I didn't want him to know I had seen anything. Not yet. My mind was racing, my heart heavy with questions I wasn't ready to ask. That night, when he came by, he acted normal. Too normal. He asked me how my day was. He made tea. He even fixed the loose cabinet door in the kitchen. I watched him the entire time, wondering how someone could look so familiar and suddenly feel like a stranger. Grief had already taken so much from me. Now it was taking my peace too. In the days that followed, I started noticing how much of my life he had quietly stepped into. He knew my schedule. He knew my finances. He knew things I didn't remember telling him. It was as if, without me realizing, he had slowly become the person in charge. One afternoon, my neighbor stopped me outside. "You're lucky," she said gently. "Your son is always here. I see his car late at night sometimes. He really takes care of you." Late at night. I forced a smile, but inside, something twisted. Because there were nights I didn't even know he had come. I began wondering what else I didn't know. At the same time, another part of me felt guilty for even questioning him. He had been there when no one else was. He had held me together when I was falling apart. He had stepped up after his father died, carrying responsibilities no young man should have to carry so soon. But love and trust are fragile things. And once doubt enters your heart, it changes everything. Then one evening, he said something that made the air between us feel heavier than ever. "Mom," he said softly, "we need to talk about the future." The way he said it didn't sound like a suggestion. It sounded like a decision. I tried to keep my voice steady. "What do you mean, the future?" He didn't answer right away. He just sat there, his hands clasped together, staring at the table like he was choosing his words carefully. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. "I've been thinking about you," he finally said. "About this house. About everything Dad left behind." My chest tightened when he mentioned his father. "I don't want you to struggle," he continued. "You've been through enough." Struggle? The word echoed in my mind. I had never told him I was struggling. Yes, I was grieving. Yes, I was lonely. But I wasn't helpless. Or at least, I didn't think I was. "I found some papers," I said quietly, before I could stop myself. His eyes lifted to mine instantly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "What papers?" he asked. His voice was calm, but there was something behind it now. Something guarded. "In the study," I said. "With our names on them." I watched his face carefully, searching for answers. His jaw tightened slightly. It was small, but I saw it. He knew. "I was going to tell you," he said. But he hadn't. "Tell me what?" I whispered. He leaned forward, his expression serious, almost urgent. "Mom, everything is changing. And I need you to trust me." Trust. That word again. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Part of me wanted to believe him. He was my son. My only child. The one person who had stayed. But another part of me remembered the late nights. The hidden folder. The decisions he had made without me. "Why now?" I asked. He opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. Because at that exact moment, there was a knock at the door. A hard, unexpected knock. We both froze. He turned toward the sound slowly, and the look on his face was pure panic. The knock came again. Louder this time. More urgent. My son stood up so quickly his chair scraped hard against the floor. I had never seen that look on his face before. Fear. Real fear. "Were you expecting someone?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just stared at the door like whatever was on the other side wasn't supposed to be there. My heart started racing. The house suddenly didn't feel safe anymore. "I'll get it," I said, standing up. No, his voice was sharp. Too sharp. It made me freeze. He softened his tone quickly. "I mean, you don't have to. I'll handle it." Handle it. The words sent a chill through me. He walked toward the door slowly, like each step was heavier than the last. I followed a few feet behind, my hands cold, my mind full of questions. When he opened the door, a man in a dark suit stood outside. He looked professional. Serious. His eyes moved past my son, and landed on me. "Mrs. Khan?" he asked. My throat went dry. "Yes." He gave a small nod. "I've been trying to reach you." I glanced at my son. His back was stiff. "It's about your husband's file," the man continued. "File? I believe there's been a misunderstanding." My son stepped forward slightly. "This isn't a good time." But the man didn't move. He kept looking at me. He said gently, "There are documents that require your direct confirmation. Not anyone else's. Not anyone else's." The words hung in the air. I felt my son's presence beside me, tense and silent. "I don't understand," I said. The man hesitated, like he wasn't sure how much to say. "Some changes were requested," he said carefully. "After your husband's death." My heart skipped. "What changes?" Before he could answer, my son spoke. "I told you," he said to me quietly. I was going to explain. I turned to him. His eyes met mine, filled with something I couldn't read. Not anger. Not sadness. Desperation. In that moment, I realized something that made my stomach drop. Whatever was happening had already begun. And I was the last person to know. I felt like the ground beneath me was slipping away. "What changes?" I asked again, my voice barely steady. The man in the suit looked at me, then at my son, as if he understood the weight of what he was about to say. "Your husband left everything in your name," he said gently. "The house, the savings, all of it. But recently, we received a request to transfer ownership of the house." My heart stopped. Transfer, to who? He didn't need to answer. I slowly turned to my son. He couldn't look at me. "To me," he said quietly. The words hit harder than anything else that day. "Why?" I whispered. He ran his hand through his hair, his voice shaking. "Because I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Of losing you." I stared at him, confused. He stepped closer. "Mom, after Dad died, you changed. You stopped caring about everything. You forgot to pay bills. You didn't answer calls. I thought if something happened, if someone tricked you, you could lose the house. This house. Dad's house." His eyes filled with tears. "I wasn't trying to take it from you," he said. "I was trying to protect it." "Protect you?" The man in the suit nodded slightly. "He didn't complete the transfer. We needed your approval. That's why I came." I felt a mix of emotions crash over me. Anger. Hurt. Relief. "You should have told me," I said. "I know," he whispered. "I was afraid you'd think I didn't trust you." The truth was, he didn't. But I could see it now. The late nights. The stress. The pressure he had carried alone. He wasn't trying to replace his father. He was trying to become him. "I'm still your mother," I said softly. "And I'm still your son," he replied. The man quietly excused himself, leaving us alone. The house felt silent again. But different. Honest. In the days that followed, we talked more than we had in months. We set boundaries. We shared the responsibility. Slowly, the tension faded. Until one afternoon, while sorting through my husband's old desk, I found something else. A letter. It was addressed to me. In my husband's handwriting. But the date on it was just 1 week before he died. And as I opened it, my hands began to tremble. Because the first line read, "If you're reading this, it means our son knows the truth." My hands trembled so much I had to sit down. Across the room, my son was watching me. He noticed the letter, and I saw the color drain from his face. "You've seen this before," I said quietly. He didn't answer. That was my answer. I unfolded the paper slowly. My husband's handwriting was just as I remembered, strong, steady, familiar. It felt like hearing his voice again after all this time. If you're reading this, it means our son knows the truth. And maybe now, it's time you know it too. My eyes filled with tears as I continued. He wrote about his illness. Not the one that took him suddenly, but the one he had hidden for months before. He wrote about the doctor visits he went to alone. The reports he kept secret. He said he didn't tell me because he couldn't bear to see me living in fear while he was still alive. But the part that made my heart ache the most was about our son. I told him, the letter said. I told him because I needed someone to be strong when I couldn't be anymore. I asked him to watch over you. Not to control you. Not to replace me. But to protect you, and to remind you that you're stronger than you believe. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. I looked up at my son. He was crying too. You promised him, I whispered. He nodded. He made me promise. I didn't want to keep it from you, Mom, but he asked me to. He said you deserved peace, at least for a little while. Suddenly, everything made sense. The late nights. The worry. The way he carried himself after his father died. He wasn't trying to take anything from me. He was trying to keep a promise. I stood up and walked to him. For a moment, we just looked at each other, not as a broken mother and a secretive son, but as two people who loved the same man and were trying to survive without him. I hugged him tightly. And in that moment, the grief didn't disappear, but it felt lighter. In the weeks that followed, we started healing. Not all at once. But slowly. Honestly. Together. I learned that grief doesn't just take. Sometimes, it reveals. It shows you the strength you didn't know you had. It shows you the love that never left. My husband was gone. But his love was still here. In his words. In his home. And in our son, who never stopped helping me, even when it broke his own heart. And that was the truth that changed everything.